In a world where oversharing has become the norm, where vulnerability is often mistaken for weakness, and where every thought is broadcast for validation, there's an underrated strength in silence. We live in an era where people eagerly share their struggles, seeking sympathy, advice, or even just an audience. But what if I told you that revealing your problems indiscriminately can do more harm than good? That constantly voicing your struggles can trap you in a cycle of victimhood, diminish your resilience, and even invite unnecessary judgment or exploitation? This isn't about suppressing emotions or refusing help when you truly need it. It's about understanding the power of discretion, knowing when to speak, whom to trust, and how to transform your struggles into strength rather than using them as a crutch. The most resilient people in history didn't complain their way to success. They endured, adapted, and overcame. So before you share your problems with just anyone, consider this. Not everyone deserves access to your struggles, and not every ear is a safe place for your pain. Share struggles only when necessary, with mentors, true allies, or in contexts where it serves a purpose. Not every battle needs an audience. Conclusion, your struggles are not a badge of honor to be displayed for pity, nor are they a burden to be dumped onto just anyone. They are your private battles, your lessons, and your stepping stones to strength. The world doesn't need to know every storm you face. What matters is how you navigate it. So before you speak, ask yourself, will sharing this help me grow, or will it keep me stuck? Choose wisely, because not every ear is a safe harbor, and not every voice deserves to hear your story. Silence isn't weakness, it's power. Use it wisely. This speech avoids any policy violations, aligns with psychological insights without direct attribution, and delivers a strong motivational message. Let me know if you'd like any refinements. We live in an age of constant confession, where people broadcast their struggles online, share their deepest insecurities with strangers, and seek validation for every hardship they face. Social media has turned vulnerability into a performance, and many believe that speaking about their problems is the same as solving them. But what if I told you that revealing your struggles to the wrong people can actually make things worse? That not every ear is a safe place for your pain, and not every voice offering sympathy has your best interests at heart? This isn't about hiding your struggles or pretending you don't have them. It's about understanding the power of silence, the strength of discretion, and the importance of choosing wisely whom you let into your inner world. Some people will use your struggles against you, others will pretend to care while secretly judging you, and some will simply drain your energy by turning your pain into gossip. True strength isn't found in endless venting, it's found in resilience, in solving problems rather than just talking about them, and in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. So before you share your problems with just anyone, ask yourself, will this help me or will it hold me back? 5 key lessons. 1, not everyone deserves your story. When you share your problems with the wrong people, you give them power over you. Some will weaponize your struggles, using them to manipulate, control, or even humiliate you. Others will simply dismiss them, making you feel worse. True allies are rare. Before you open up, ask, has this person earned my trust? Do they have the wisdom to help, or will they just add to the noise? 2, complaining weakens you. The more you talk about your problems without taking action, the more you reinforce a victim mindset. Your brain begins to see itself as powerless, and your struggles grow larger in your mind. Venting might feel good in the moment, but if it doesn't lead to solutions, it's just mental rehearsal for failure. Instead of complaining, ask, what can I do right now to make this better? 3, silence builds strength. The strongest people in history didn't wind their way to success. They endured, adapted, and overcame. There's a reason soldiers, leaders, and champions don't broadcast their struggles to the world. Silence isn't about suppression, it's about discipline. It's the ability to carry weight without crumbling under it. The less you rely on others' validation, the more unshakable you become. 4, your problems are yours to solve. Seeking advice is wise, but constantly dumping your struggles onto others turns you into a burden. People respect those who take responsibility, not those who expect others to fix their lives. Instead of saying, look what happened to me, ask, what can I learn from this? The moment you stop looking for rescuers and start looking for solutions, you become unstoppable. 5, speak strategically or not at all. There's a time to share your struggles with a mentor, a true friend, or in a setting where it serves a purpose, but most of the time, the world doesn't need to know. Your pain isn't a badge of honor, it's fuel for growth. Share only when it helps you move forward, not when it keeps you stuck in the past. Your struggles are not for public consumption, they are your private battles, your lessons, and your path to strength. The more you talk about them without purpose, the more power you give away. The less you complain, the more you grow. So guard your story, protect your energy, and remember, real strength isn't measured by how much you share, it's measured by how much you can endure, overcome, and rise without needing the world to applaud your pain. Silence is power, use it wisely. This version is more direct, motivational, and structured for maximum impact while staying within guidelines. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments. Write all keynotes at once, and don't mention keynotes no and digits no, only heading in bold. Not everyone deserves your story, your struggles, your pain, your deepest challenges. These are sacred. They are not currency to be traded for sympathy or attention. When you share your problems carelessly, you give away pieces of yourself to people who may not deserve them. Some will use your vulnerability as ammunition, twisting your words, exploiting your weaknesses, or diminishing your experiences. Others will listen politely but secretly judge you, reducing your complex battles to simple gossip. And then there are those who simply cannot handle the weight of your truth, not because they are cruel, but because they lack the capacity to hold space for it. This is not about isolation or paranoia. It's about discernment. Before you open up, ask yourself, has this person earned the right to my story? Look for those rare individuals who have proven themselves through action, the ones who listen without judgment, who offer wisdom instead of empty platitudes, and who respect your struggles enough to help you rise above them rather than keep you stuck in them. The world is full of people who will gladly feast on your pain if you let them. Protect your narrative, not because you are ashamed of your struggles, but because they are too valuable to be wasted on those who won't appreciate their worth. Your story is yours to tell, but only to those who deserve to hear it. Complaining weakens you. Words have power, especially the ones you speak about yourself. Every time you voice your problems without seeking solutions, you reinforce a narrative of helplessness in your mind. Venting might provide temporary relief, but like a drug, the more you rely on it, the weaker you become. Your brain begins to interpret your struggles as insurmountable obstacles rather than challenges to be overcome. This isn't to say you should suppress your emotions. Acknowledging pain is necessary, but dwelling on it is dangerous. The difference between processing and complaining lies in intention. Are you speaking about your problems to understand them better, or are you just rehearsing your suffering? One leads to growth, the other to stagnation. The strongest people don't deny their hardships. They simply refuse to be defined by them. They focus on what they can control, channeling their energy into action rather than endless discussion. Next time you feel the urge to complain, pause. Ask yourself, is this helping me move forward, or is it keeping me trapped in place? Break the cycle. Replace words of weakness with actions of strength. Silence builds strength. There's an ancient power in silence, a discipline that modern society has forgotten. In a world that glorifies oversharing, the ability to endure quietly is a superpower. Think of the oak tree that doesn't announce its growth, the soldier who doesn't boast of his scars, or the leader who doesn't publicize every obstacle. True strength doesn't need an audience. Silence is not suppression. It is the space where resilience is forged. When you stop seeking external validation for your struggles, you develop an unshakable inner foundation. You learn to rely on yourself, to trust your ability to overcome without needing others to constantly reassure you. This doesn't mean you never ask for help. It means you don't make helplessness a habit. Practice carrying your burdens with dignity. Let your actions speak louder than your complaints. The less you broadcast your struggles, the more powerful you become. Because real strength isn't measured by how much you share, but by how much you can endure without breaking. Your problems are yours to solve. At the end of the day, no one is coming to save you. This isn't pessimism, it's liberation. When you truly internalize that your problems are yours to solve, you stop waiting for permission, pity, or rescue. You become the hero of your own story rather than a victim waiting for someone else to write the next chapter. This doesn't mean you reject all help. Wise people seek guidance, learn from mentors, and collaborate when needed, but there's a world of difference between seeking direction and demanding salvation. One empowers you, the other infantilizes you. Take radical responsibility for your life. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I do about it?" The moment you shift from blame to ownership, you reclaim your power. Your problems may not be your fault, but they are your responsibility. And that's good news, because if they're yours to solve, then you're also the one who gets to claim the victory. Speak strategically or not at all. Not every thought needs a voice, not every struggle requires a witness. There is immense power in knowing when to speak and when to hold your peace. Many people mistake constant sharing for authenticity, but true authenticity isn't about volume, it's about value. Are your words serving a purpose, or are they just noise? Strategic sharing means choosing your audience, timing, and intention carefully. Some situations demand vulnerability, a heartfelt conversation with a trusted mentor, a necessary confession to repair a relationship, or a shared struggle that inspires others. But most of the time, your battles are best fought in silence until they're won. Ask yourself before speaking, will this help me or someone else grow? If the answer isn't a clear yes, consider the power of silence. Your words are precious, spend them wisely. The world doesn't need to know every storm you face, it just needs to see the strength with which you emerge from them. The hidden cost of sharing your struggles every time you voice your problems to someone incapable of truly understanding or helping, you pay a price. Not just in wasted time and energy, but in something far more valuable, your personal power. What begins as an innocent attempt to seek comfort or advice often becomes a subtle trap, reinforcing cycles of helplessness and dependency that keep you stuck exactly where you are. The psychological mechanism is simple yet devastating. When you repeatedly describe your problems without taking concrete action, your brain begins to accept those problems as permanent fixtures in your life. Neurologically, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with victimhood while weakening those associated with agency and solution finding. This is why chronic complainers often find themselves facing the same issues years later. They've literally trained their brains to maintain the status quo through their speech patterns. Moreover, each unnecessary disclosure creates social consequences we rarely anticipate. Colleagues who hear about your financial struggles may unconsciously question your competence. Friends who constantly hear about your relationship problems may start seeing you as emotionally unstable. Even family members can develop subtle biases against you when you make your struggles common knowledge. These perceptions form quietly in the background, affecting opportunities and relationships in ways you may never directly observe. The alternative isn't suppression, it's strategic transformation. Instead of announcing, I'm overwhelmed at work, try, I'm restructuring my priorities to maximize productivity. Rather than complaining, my relationship is failing, ask, what specific behaviors could improve my partnership? This linguistic shift does more than change how others see you. It fundamentally alters how your brain approaches challenges. History's most resilient figures understood this principle intimately. Consider the POWs who survived years of captivity by focusing on small, actionable goals rather than voicing despair. Or immigrant success stories built on determined problem solving rather than public lamentation. Their strength came not from denying hardship, but from refusing to let hardship dominate their narrative. Your words create your reality far more than your circumstances do. Every time you speak about your problems, you're faced with a choice. Will this utterance reinforce my chains or forge my freedom? The most powerful people aren't those without problems or those who've learned to use their challenges as fuel rather than as fodder for conversation. This isn't to suggest you should never seek help or counsel. The distinction lies in quality and purpose. A carefully chosen mentor who provides concrete guidance is invaluable. A therapy session with clear goals is transformative. But casual complaints to acquaintances, emotional dumping on social media, these aren't solutions, they're sedatives, offering temporary relief at the cost of long-term strength. The path to true resilience begins with a simple but profound realization. Your voice is your most powerful tool for either change or stagnation. Use it to declare solutions, not just to describe problems. Speak to inspire action, not just to elicit sympathy. And when in doubt, remember that silence often builds more strength than speech ever could. Your future self will thank you for every unnecessary complaint you chose not to voice, and for every problem you solved instead of just discussing. The world will try to convince you that sharing every struggle is therapeutic, that vulnerability always equals strength. Don't be fooled. True strength lies in discernment, in knowing when speaking serves you and when it diminishes you. Master this distinction and you master one of life's most potent secrets, that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. The alchemy of silence, how strategic restraint forges unshakable character. In an era where oversharing has become cultural currency, we've forgotten a fundamental truth. Silence is the crucible in which true strength is forged. When you stop broadcasting your struggles, something remarkable happens. You begin the sacred work of self-transformation that no amount of external validation can replicate. This is the paradox of power. By refusing to verbalize every hardship, you gain the capacity to overcome them all. Neuroscience reveals that silent endurance rewires the brain differently than vocal complaint. fMRI studies show that when individuals process challenges internally rather than expressing them verbally, they activate deeper problem-solving networks while strengthening emotional regulation pathways. This explains why those who practice disciplined silence develop what psychologists call stress inoculation, the ability to handle greater pressures with less distress. Ancient warrior cultures understood this instinctively. Their training emphasized bearing discomfort quietly because they recognized vocalization is a release valve that diminishes adaptive capacity. Consider the physiological transformation that occurs when you choose silence over complaint. Cortisol patterns stabilize, heart rate variability improves. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's command center for rational decision-making, maintains dominance over the amygdala's panic responses. You become quite literally biologically more resilient. This is why elite performers in fields from special operations to classical music cultivate the habit of silent processing. They know endurance is first built in the unspoken spaces of the mind. The social dynamics are equally profound. In any hierarchy, those who maintain composed silence during challenges are unconsciously granted higher status. Leaders emerge not from those who articulate every difficulty, but from those who demonstrate capacity to bear burdens without crumbling. This explains the still water phenomenon, how individuals who speak less about their struggles are instinctively perceived as more competent, even when others know objectively little about their actual capabilities. Your unspoken struggles become the foundation of what the Stoics called invincibility, not the absence of challenges, but the presence of unassailable inner resources. Each time you resist the urge to vocalize a problem, you're making a deposit in your psychological resilience bank. These compound over time into what appears to observers as unshakable confidence, when in reality it's the earned security of someone who knows they've survived previous storms without needing to describe them. The modern world has pathologized this strength as repression. Don't be deceived. There's a world of difference between pathological suppression and strategic silence. One is fear-based avoidance, the other is conscious mastery. The former leads to explosion, the latter to unshakable poise. When Navy SEAL candidates endure Hell Week, their instructors don't want to hear their pain, not because they lack compassion, but because they understand vocalization diminishes the transformative potential of the experience. This principle manifests in nature's wisest designs. Bamboo grows silently for years before outpacing all other plants. The strongest currents run deepest and quietest. Even our bodies heal most powerfully in the silence of sleep. Here's a message here we do well to heed. Growth at the highest levels requires periods of disciplined non-erection. Your silence becomes the blank canvas on which your future self is painted. Every unsaid complaint is space created for solution. Every unvoiced doubt is energy redirected toward action. This is how ordinary people forge extraordinary character, not through dramatic declarations, but through daily decisions to let their struggle strengthen them rather than define them. The marketplace of modern culture will try to sell you on the catharsis of constant expression, but the timeless truth remains. What you don't speak, you often overcome. What you refuse to declare as a problem, you frequently transcend without notice. In the quiet spaces between your thoughts and your speech lives your greatest potential for power. Guard that space jealously. The sovereign mind, why your problems belong to you alone. True maturity begins when you stop expecting the world to participate in your suffering. There exists an unspoken law of human nature. The moment you outsource your problems, you surrender your power. This isn't isolationism. It's the recognition that ultimate responsibility can never be delegated. The ancient Greeks had a concept called arete, the pursuit of excellence through complete self-mastery. At its core was this radical idea: your battles are yours alone to fight, and in that fighting you forge your soul's mettle. Modern psychology confirms what philosophers always knew: the internal locus of control, the belief that you direct your life's outcomes, correlates directly with achievement, resilience, and life satisfaction. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one tells you. You can't maintain an internal locus while constantly externalizing your struggles. Every time you hand your narrative to others, you weaken your psychological sovereignty. Like a muscle that atrophies from disuse, problem-solving capacity diminishes when over-delegated. Consider the neurological implications. When you articulate a problem to others before fully grappling with it yourself, you short-circuit your brain's innate problem-solving mechanisms. The anterior cingulate cortex, your neural conflict resolution center, becomes less active when you habitually seek external solutions. Essentially, you're trading long-term cognitive strength for short-term emotional relief. The math